Excited.
We're back. I'm excited about this.
We're back, baby. Is this the? Are we going? Are we? I don't know. Do we do a hi? This is Dan and Chris. Or is it this? This is it, Dan. Is this the start of the? I'm having an identity crisis, Dan. Is this the start of the podcast?
No, I usually do. Hello and welcome to Analysing Avatar.
Right.
There is an intro, but we can have a little before the intro bit.
We're back.
We're back, baby.
Identity crisis, existential crisis. What would that be? Me sort of not knowing if we'd started or not. What kind of crisis would it be?
I don't know.
Well, I'll tell you. I'll tell you what, Dan.
crisis?
I tell you what, Dan. There's only one crisis to talk about today, and it's those pesky vines. Roll the titles.
Hello and welcome to Analysing Avatar, or should I say, welcome back? We are back. It's great. I love it. You know what? I miss this when we're not doing it, and I hate it while we are. No, I'm kidding. No, I always whenever I really like our schedule, Chris, of switching between rewind reviews and analysing Avatar, because what tends to happen is just when I'm starting to be a bit like, especially when like season 2 of Korra wasn't great. Just as I'm ready to be like, I need a break from this, we get rewind reviews, and I'm always really excited to get back to rewind reviews. But then we'll do like the Pirates movies. Hint, hint. Well, we've just done those. That'll be released if people are hearing this, so there's not a tease. And then I'll be very much ready to put rewind reviews to bed for a bit, and then I'll just be like, oh yeah, Korra. I get excited about this again, and it just literally keeps me on my toes in the best way. I really enjoy switching between the two podcasts in terms of our release schedule. I guess if for listeners in the future though, they don't experience that, do they? If they've just stumbled across Analysing Avatar, from their perspective, it just all runs into itself because that feed doesn't have the rewind review stuff in it or the breaks.
No,
we can't force people to wait 10 weeks between the podcasts once they're out there.
No, if anything, I think that would be detrimental to the podcast.
We'll try that at the end of this series. We'll be like, right, everyone, if you listen to this in the future and the next series is already out, be patient. Give it 10 weeks.
It takes me a few episodes to get into Korra, if I'm honest.
What's that, sorry?
Well, it takes me a few episodes to get into. No.
Yes.
It takes me a few episodes to get into Korra, but I didn't mean so much get into Korra the show. I mean
the podcast,
preferring it to rewind reviews. What happens here is because I really like rewind reviews and the excuse to watch old movies. Although I'm into Korra, I think what's helpful here is we've just finished on a franchise of 5 movies, so it's like we haven't really had a lot of choice for the last 5 recordings. Yeah. So it's less. I'm less bothered about that now at the minute.
We made the horrible mistake of choosing to do the Pirates films, and I think in the end, while it's that again, like when we did the Harry Potter films, it started very positive, and then we by the end, I think we were a bit defeated by it. Thankfully, it didn't have quite the effect on our mental health as the Harry Potter films did, because we only did 5 of them. But I tell you what, if they'd continued, we'd be in trouble right about now. I was on the verge of feeling that.
Yeah, that's fair. So here we are, Korra Series 3. Did you have to? I did my now traditional start for a series of Korra, Dan. Mm-hmm. Which is I got Man of recap of the whole show up, and then I stop at the season we've just watched. So I rewatched the season 1 recap, and then I watched for the first time the season 2 recap, and then he said, and that's the end of season 2, and I paused it, and I popped on the first episode of season 3. And I was surprised that it was all about vines. If I'm honest, I wasn't predicting that. I don't necessarily, I don't have a problem with that. It's fine. But I was like, oh, this is not the direction I thought we were going to take. Okay,
well, I would say it's about 2 things, because if you look at what this episode sort of ends on, the note is we're off to find new airbenders. That's kind of the bigger thrust of what happens in this episode. So for those who don't recall, very quick recap. This is the episode in which Korra, we come back. So a bit of time has passed since Korra let the she defeated Unavatu, or whatever they're calling that thing, and because Jinora magicked hard, and since then, and her decision to let spirits in the spirit world and the real world sort of quote unquote real world, their world like merge. Spirit vines have taken up residence in New York. Not New York, but you know what I mean, faux New York. And all the grumpy New Yorkers are mad. They're all like, "I'm walking here" at the vines, and Korra's all like, "Yeah, really sorry about that, but kind of, you know, I made a unilateral decision. It's going to affect everyone's lives without really thinking it through." So they're all naturally a little pissed, and she's trying to figure it out. But she's trying to figure it out the wrong way to start with, because she's, instead of doing the thing she said she'd do, which is find a way for spirits and humanity to live together, instead she's just trying to make the spirits and put them back in their bottle a little bit. Something tells me she'll figure that out as the season goes on. That's maybe not the approach, because when she tries to do that, it ends up backfiring every time. Separate to that, opening up the real world to the spirit world has had another effect, it seems, which is that a bunch of people have gained airbending powers, random people across the world, and Tenzin is really excited to think that, you know, there's a way to carry on the Air Nation, you know, the Air Nomads. So the episode ends with the sort of like setup, presumably at least for the next few episodes, or if not the season, of this idea of traveling around and recruiting almost potential airbenders and training them and teaching them the ways, which will be tricky because a lot of them won't have grown up in that world the way that the monks did back in the day. And then we have a little tease for a villain, Zahir, who is already in prison but gains airbending powers, and he's quoting ancient airbender, quoting ancient airbender sort of, I'm trying to think of the word I'm looking for, like wisdom, which kind of positions him as sort of an anti-Tenzin a little bit. And the idea of him being out there at the same time is kind of terrifying, because he clearly knows airbending ways, even if he didn't have airbending previously, and now he's been gifted the thing he probably most wanted, based on what we've seen here. So yeah, that's kind of the setup for the series. It's worth noting this episode aired with 2 other episodes, the next 2, not just 2 random episodes from the season. That would have been fun. What a surefire way to get the show cancelled. Yeah, we're airing episode 1 and 7 and then maybe 5 in that order. No, it's 1, 2 and 3 aired together. So this is very much...
Don't be silly. What show would ever do that? Firefly?
Yeah, Fox. So it's worth noting that this is really Act 1 of a 3-act sort of setup for this series. But that's the basic premise of where we're at. How are we feeling about it, Chris? With all that in mind.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. It felt very Act 1. Like, it felt like it was a lot of setup, a lot of positioning. A lot of where is everyone? Most of whom are at Tenzin's house, which I liked. I thought great. Yes. We're not faffing. We're not having people separate. We got Korra got time with Asami, which made me go, oh, maybe if Asami's connected to Korra, she'll have more to do. That's exciting. So I enjoyed that. I enjoyed their little
hashtag
chat.
Justice for Asami.
If
you remember rightly, Chris, last year we only, for the first time ever, only added 1 name to the Knobhead Hall of Fame for that season. We usually add 2, and it wasn't even a character for the show. We added the writers for doing Asami dirty. Hashtag Justice for Asami.
Yeah, just hashtag Justice for Asami. Just ridiculous. So I was pleased to see Asami got some screen time, probably more than Marco, which is the more sort of jocular, jokey one. That's Marco, isn't it?
No, Bolin is the jokey one. Marco is the one that's in the police force.
Yeah, so Marco at least got some stuff, and we see him sort of sleeping rough in the police force and stuff. Bolin maybe had a little less, but still had some moments of comedy. I liked that they had him eating there before they set up he was living there. That made me laugh because I was like, was he just always round for dinner now? Like, what's happening here?
Yeah, that's a good choice.
I hope that because I jest about the Vine stuff. The Vine stuff is fine, but although I can't remember Vines overtaking the world. Did that not happen at the end of? Because obviously they showed the flashback of the lights and stuff. So okay, so the vines are new.
The vines are an unforeseen consequence. So she's allowed the spirit world to enter the real world, and one of the consequences of that, one of, you presume, several that will occur over the course of time, is that spirit vines, which presumably are a spirit of them in of themselves, they're a living thing, have entered the real world because she's left that door open, essentially. And that's like a thing that's happening, and it's created sort of like a little bit of a mini forest inside a city, which I love that juxtaposition visually, by the way, of the sort of a forest inside of a city. It's a really cool
especially
idea.
The one early on where well, tell that to Doctor Who, Dan, because In the Forest of the Night is not a popular episode. God, that's a niche comment and joke, isn't it? Jesus.
If you're following our rule of doing a shot every time we mention Harry Potter or Doctor Who, we've done both so far this week. So have a shot.
Let's get pissed.
Have your second shot.
I like the Vine thing, although I hope the Vine manifests itself, as you've just indicated or said, into wider spirit world, human world stuff. Because I would prefer, the general sort of, I like the hint of this exploration of, you've made this decision and we don't want to live with spirits. And I think it's actually quite I wasn't expecting them to pick up that thread, and they didn't need to. A lesser show could have just had spirits bobbing about in the background from now on, but we're actually tackling that issue. Is interesting to me. I would like to see it tackled in more than these vines are annoying, but that's fine. Like, that's, it's episode 1. Like, we've got a lot of establishing to do. But that's not a problem at all.
But I think as well, the vines representing the barrier, like picking something specifically that's causing a problem to be the reason the Republic City folk, the New Yorkers of the world of Korra, to be angry. I think it's smart to give them something specific, because if this season had just been like, as you said, like just various spirits knocking about and shots of people being like frightened of them as they come down the street, and then them just being like, "We're all mad at you, Korra," you're sort of like, well, they're not hurting you, so this is a thing of prejudice. But I think to actually give them some ammunition for their argument and actually say, well, we've lost the city, like people have been displaced. Like Bolin doesn't live with Tenzin because he's looking for tasty meals all the time, although that would also be a fair explanation for why Bolin was living on a Temple Island. But the reason he's there is he's been displaced. His home is gone, and they've I think choosing to use the vines to represent the issue presented by what Korra chose to do is actually really smart, in my opinion, because
no, I'd agree,
because it's an understandable and genuine problem. Like, if that happened in London and we lost a portion of London to spirit vines, you bet there'd be a lot of political debate about whether the vines have a right to be there, and because they're a living thing, or whether we should exterminate them to get London back. Like, it would absolutely split people, and I think that's that's an interesting route to go, and I think that's like the smartest way to turn physical what would otherwise be a bit of a metaphorical debate about the morality of what Korra did. I like that they're presenting a legitimate problem and not just spirits attacking, because spirits attacking will be quite lazy, because then if spirits were just bounding through and attacking people left, right, and centre, then categorically Korra has done the wrong thing. She's basically set predators upon the world. By having the spirits be completely benign, but inconveniencing or causing problems in other ways, such as displacing hundreds of people from their homes, that's way more compelling a situation to have crafted, and shows an awful lot of nuance, I think, that the show was maybe lacking previous season with some of its choices, and some of its execution. So, I mean, look, we were all positive at the start of last season too. Good ideas that then they didn't actually nail. So it's worth noting that, my memory is very much enjoying this season. This is one of my favourite seasons, I think. But it comes with that caveat of, I didn't think season 2 was that problematic. Or I say problematic, I don't mean problematic in the political sense. I mean problematic in the, like, it doesn't work as a story sense. And yet, once we sat down and rewatched it / reviewed it, season 2 really struck me as being quite broken. So all of this comes with the caveats of it's been a couple of years since I've watched this. Probably, I don't remember exactly last time I saw season 3 of Korra, but I am mildly nervous that we'll have some of those same issues creeping back in. But my memory of this season and season 4 that they're really strong. So I'm hoping that we do get to actually explore what's interesting about these initial ideas and not do what happened last year, which is a bunch of really interesting initial ideas that then didn't go anywhere.
Yeah, and I think in a way it's almost hard, especially now knowing that it's the first aired on the same night as 2 others. It's almost hard to review this episode in a sense, because this episode is a series of good ideas. Like, do you know what I mean? But I don't think there's necessarily, but nothing's got resolved in this episode, other than Boomy's not the only one airbending. It's not all about Boomy, and that's a good again. That was a smart choice. I thought that was a good introduction into it, especially because obviously he's from his dad was an airbender, so you don't think at first, oh, this is everyone. You just think, oh, sweet, Boomy's got powers now. That could be fun.
Yeah,
and then
it is that idea that they even hint at, like, oh, it could be latent abilities. They give you another potential explanation at first, so you don't immediately jump to has a bunch of people got them. Like they kind of disguise it by choosing Boomy, don't they?
Yeah, exactly. And that's done really cleverly, I think. So yeah, I think there's a lot of smart choices here, but there's not necessarily with most of them. Like, so for another good example is Korra's continuing disagreements with the mayor and their quite public fallout, and this notion that Korra is now is now thinking about the numbers and like talking to the press, and like those 2 lines in particular, I was like, wow, this really is like we've talked about it before. There's nothing new to say, but for die-hard fans of certain elements of Avatar, I can see why they didn't like Korra. Like, the notion of a press conference or looking at poll numbers on Avatar for people that are perhaps more into the kind of spiritual side of it. And the more, the more historic sort of world, I can see that being a huge thing. But I didn't mind it. I'm not, too fussed about that stuff.
I stand by what we've said about this show since pretty much season 1, which is, if you want more Avatar, go rewatch Avatar. Like this, I really respect that the creative team. Mikey and Bri, as we've referred to them, that they went down the route of just like, well, no, this will be a different show. There'll be different ages. We'll tackle different issues. It'll be in a different era, so there'll be some more modern things to maybe look at. Things like looking at like more modern approaches to politics and stuff, and not just this like loose connection of towns governed by kings that we had in like the Avatar times when things seemed much simpler. But then there's also that really neat idea as well of, well, maybe things just seemed simpler politically because we were looking at it through the eyes of a 12-year-old, and here we are looking at the world through the eyes of however old Korra is at this point. She's got to be 17, 18 at least. No, I don't know. I'm not actually sure how old Korra is at this point. I could probably Google it. But the eyes of someone who's coming into the world and learning about the sort of politics, and learning how to handle herself in a modern world where she's going to have to convince people of what she's saying. Okay, so she is 18. She's 18 right now, according to, I assume, Wikipedia.
Well, in this season specifically.
Yeah. So she's 17 in book 1. She's 18 in book 2 and book 3, and then there must be a small time jump because she's 21 in book 4, according to this. I don't recall there being a small time jump, but it's fine. So she's 18 right now, and that really fits to me. Like the idea of an 18-year-old coming into this world, and the world is a bit more modern. There is such a thing as like news and press conferences and stuff now, and wanting to manage her image. It's something that Aang never had to worry about as the Avatar. He had to worry about like stopping a war. he had no time to worry about what people thought of him. But they did do versions of that. Like there's that one where where Aang went to a town and the town hated him because they thought as a previous life he'd killed their leader as Kyoshi. So there's there was a bit of Aang dealing with his public perception. As well as his, but it was just done differently because it was like a slightly older world sort of time. But yeah, I think it makes perfect sense, and I think it's interesting, and I certainly am glad they're doing this over just doing another Avatar.
Yeah, completely, and but the at the root of that was the mare thing, like that storyline. Again, I really like, but I think with this episode, the reason it's slightly hard to review is. It's set up, and that's fine. It does it really well. Like I haven't got. This is one of those classic. I'm not saying the episode is bad. I'm saying it's hard to stretch a 45-minute review of this episode because is this the first episode of this series? They've gone. We're gonna set up some shit. Has that shit made me go? I wonder what's gonna happen here. I want to watch more. Yeah. So it's done its job. It's absolutely done its job.
Yeah, it did it in an entertaining way. Like I thought the script was reasonably funny. Like the little bit of action we got was good. Like I enjoyed it, and I liked the idea as well of the first guy that gets airbending definitely does not want to be an airbender. And got to the point of nearly throwing himself off a bridge. Like it's pretty extreme.
They did this notion of more airbenders, which I do have a specific comment on, actually, which I'll come back to. But I like the way that they've shown us 3 different versions of that. Someone who's like, what's going on here? But not in a bad way, but just like keen to maybe learn, Boomy. Someone who's like, what the fuck, I hate this. This isn't something I wanted. Why is this happening? I don't like it. The dude who smashed up the store. And then someone who's like, sweet, I can do my evil bidding now. Ha 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 ha. The villain guy. So, I like that they've taken that concept. Here's what I will say about that concept. If you're gonna do it, and if it really is gonna be random people all over this world are suddenly airbenders, I want it explained. I want to know why. What happened last year, if the writers can wade through that convoluted mess of a finale, I want to know why airbending is now a thing for people. I want that to be explained.
Do you not think would you not be satisfied with when she opened up the spirit world that allowed more airbenders to be created?
Sure, but tell me that in the show. Do you know what I mean?
I think did Korra not sort of say that this week since harmonic convergence? Did she not do that specifically?
Maybe, but if she did, I didn't maybe think it was done. I don't know. I just don't know. I don't know. It just feels a bit like given the the lengths that last series we explained the origins of the Avatar, something that I wouldn't have thought. We discussed this a lot last year. I wouldn't have thought I wanted an explanation for that. Like, I didn't think it needed that, but we got one, and as we discussed, it was a satisfying, logical one that actually they made work. The fact that they made that work, great. Yeah. But, they've given origins and defined what the Avatar is in great detail. To wave this off with, harmonic conversion, spirit shit. I want a little bit more than that, personally.
Okay. Interesting. Well, I got the quotes from the episode. It's brought up 2 times. So Tenzin to Korra towards the end of the episode, when he's talking to her about she can't fix the problems of everyone in Republic City, and he says, on the other hand, some people will be very happy, and he sort of sits next to her. He's like me. What you did during harmonic convergence may have brought back the Air Nation, and that can only be good for restoring balance, and that is the act of a great Avatar. And then prior to that, Korra says, when they're discussing how Boomy got his powers, says, do you think being in the spirit world during harmonic convergence could have given him bending? And then Tenzin saying, I suppose that's possible. So they've linked it twice through dialogue, not explicitly, I suppose, but yeah. They're certainly laying the seeds for that to be the explanation. But I guess how much? But the narrator actually starts the episode by saying the world has entered a new age. Harmonic convergence created an energy shift, the likes of which has never been felt before.
Okay, so yeah, there is an explanation. I think it comes back to the, we don't want to go over old rope, but it comes a bit back to the finale, doesn't it? Like, because of what she did, and it's like I'm not entirely sure what she did still.
Right.
She went all like she killed all her past life. And that's the other thing actually as well. Like I was surprised, and this again isn't a criticism, because as before with this show, I am interested in what they're doing. I guess that is enough of an explanation to round off that point. You are right. That is fair, especially when you take into context the narration at the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
I think they sort of, to me, set up a finale where, and didn't they do this last year as well? What they set up was Korra going on a journey to try and remember her past lives. But I suppose it's only been episode 1, and there's been no real place for that in this episode. So maybe that will come back again. But I think that's the other reason I was so surprised by Vines. Well, I was sort of going, okay, so we're linking it to this.
That's an interesting thought, because, one thing you could say about the finale from last year was that one of the plot points in the end was that Korra didn't need to be an avatar like Aang or like any of her previous selves. She needed to be an avatar like Korra. And you could argue, actually, it shows a certain amount of growth that she's not immediately like, well, I want my memories back, my past lives back. Like that link, maybe she's accepted that link is gone, and that she's essentially a new avatar, fresh plucked.
Yeah, maybe.
No, previous avatar history to lean back on. Which I guess slightly depowers her, because you can't just write the words Korra goes into an avatar state, does a bunch of amazing shit, because the previous avatars could do amazing shit.
Yeah, she went big and what's that character in Watchmen? Dr. Manhattan.
Mm-hmm.
She went all Dr. Manhattan and that was after the past lives had been destroyed. So, yeah, but that's part of the problem. Like I say, don't want to go over old ground, but I'm pretty sure that happened after the.
Yeah, but even though this is an absolutely dreadful explanation, she went inside a spirit tree, and the spirit tree linked her to all extra powers to give her that. I don't know if that explicitly.
Yeah, but my point being, I'm not sure it's entirely. It's true that they can't just write that says to me that in terms of they can't just write goes into avatar state. If they wanted to be big and fight something, they'll find any old excuse to do it. You know what I mean?
You got me there. That's true. Let's talk a little bit about Zahir. What do we think about this notion? So we don't know a lot about Zahir so far. Zahir being the villainous presence at the end of this episode. The scene, for those who don't recall, is he's already in a prison, and they're bringing him food. It's like a prison that's like really like isolated from anything else. Like he's clearly a dangerous dude in whatever form he was in prior to acquiring airbending. But it seems that obviously the way these things have occurred, he's gone airbending. Whether he wanted it, fate has determined this person who actually seems to know a lot about airbender teachings, to the point where he was able to quite quickly be quite good at airbending. Presumably, the implication is he'd studied airbending and air nomad stuff for a long time. Therefore, when he actually gained the ability, he mastered it very quickly, which I think it's just on the side of believable. Just, there's a chance that could have broken the sort of logic of the world, but I think I just about bought it personally. But he talks about the teachings of a guru, Lahima, and then he absolutely kicks some ass with airbending and escapes. And since he was already in prison, you assume he was quite a dangerous figure to start with. Yeah, any thoughts on what they're doing with this guy, or what the deal is with this guy?
No, it's sort of just villain tease, wasn't it? I think all that subtext is there, but it again, it's, I hate to fall back on that answer of it's intriguing. I'm fun. It's fun. I'm keen to find out more.
Yeah.
I like the idea of him being, the opposite of Tenzin, but equally, I don't really want. Tenzin who was the mayor character or the political figure in the first episode, in the first series? Sorry. My brain. I know what you mean. When he was almost a mentor. Like for a bit, like Korra worked with him
to try and take down.
Yeah, the brother of the
villain,
of the main villain. Yeah.
Oh man,
Tarek. Is it Tarek?
Tarlok?
Or was that last year's villain?
That might have been last year.
Tarlok. But anyway, the brother, that dude, and Tenzin in series 1. The Tenzin and also her
I'm bringing it up. I think Tarlok and Unalok are the two guys from last year. Her dad and the villain. In the first year, it looks like. Where is the guy? Oh no, Tarlok, Councilman Tarlok, first season. There you go. No, it was Tarlok's first season.
Okay, so Tarlok and Tenzin, and then the dad and the uncle last year.
Mm-hmm.
And to some degree Tenzin and the uncle as well, because they disagreed on the importance of the spiritual world and stuff, didn't they? Or what Korra's training should be about. I'm good for adults disagreeing with each other and potentially, that influencing Korra and all of that sort of stuff. So I like the idea of this guy essentially being the opposite of Tenzin. I'm not too bothered about seeing. I'd really like a Team Avatar show this year, if possible. Fine if it doesn't. I'd really like, and ideally that not to be bogged down with, teenage love triangle bullshit. Although I did enjoy the love triangle bullshit in this episode. I thought their discussion was
incredibly.
very sweet. Yeah, we'll look back to that. But I'm kind of. I like the idea that he's opposed to Tenzin, but as in the opposite of Tenzin, but I don't want too much time on it. I feel like we've spent quite a lot of time in this show. And like you say, maybe that's just how this show is different, and that's just an element of this show. And if it is, fine, it makes it distinctive, but I'm not too here for it.
Yeah, the idea that we've got someone who's got the he's airbender ideology, but he's either warped it himself or he's learned a different, slightly more violent, maybe airbending methodology. He's come from a different sort of teaching. The idea that he might be ideologically opposed to Tenzin is interesting for sure. It's clear that's they're certainly hinting at that here or something in that direction. Just to clarify, by the way, and I don't know why they did this, because this is it's deeply... So, Korra's dad is Tonrok. The villain last year was Unalok. And the guy we're referring to from the first season is Tarlok. So the reason we're confused, Chris, is because apparently there's only one kind of male name in the waterbending world these days. So Tarlok is the counselor from the first season, Unalok is the villain from last season, and her dad is Tonrok.
Okay, cool.
Do you remember everyone's favourite character, Sockrock?
Is that a real character, Sockrock? Who's Sockrock?
So I was adding the word rock to the end of soccer.
Oh, nice. So and like I say, that could be what people enjoy, and it does make the show different, and that's fine. I'm just saying personally, that's not what I'm looking for. I'd really want more concentration on the gang being a gang and sort of the younger characters. The Asami Korra thing. I thought that scene in the car was fantastic. I thought it was handled really well. I thought their chemistry was great. I thought the notion of them, the way Korra handled it, just laughing it off and being like, well, I did it to you, and her joking back and stuff, really nice. Great to see Asami get more screen time, and a good way of handling the love triangle bullshit, and even Marco's just fucking awkwardness around them, and that sense from Marco, which I almost wish they'd pushed a little further of, oh, you two are friends, okay, right, well, I'm off, bye. I thought even that stuff was really nice. Did you like that stuff?
Yeah, it's probably other than the teasers for what's to come, which are all thumbs up. Just all of this stuff is interesting. All of this stuff has the potential to be a really great season of this show, which is pretty much how I came out of this episode feeling about most things. This is the thing that I was most tangibly able to grab onto as a thing that happened in this episode that was a really clear story beat that's doesn't even necessarily need to be evolved beyond that notion, but this is like a really great place to have the characters starting a season. Like it's Korra and Asami both having been involved in that, both accepted that that's been and gone, and it feels like this plot, this episode was really putting a stamp on the end of that particular love triangle bullshit, because it was just like they both seem like they're very much over Marco now. They're kind of laughing about all the drama that occurred in the previous season. Marco's still very awkward about the whole thing, which is a funny position to put him in, because he usually is the one that's kind of, cool and calm and collected. The idea that he's the one that feels awkward about it, they've moved on, the two girls in question, and that they found a friendship is delightful and a really good button on that, to the point where you go, I almost hope we don't reopen that can of worms now we've sealed it, because that and I'll be honest with you, I'm talking from having genuinely having no real memory of what they do with it this specific season, and whether it comes back or whether they reopen the can of worms or not. I genuinely can't remember. So I'm at a point of like, perfect, please, yeah, because we it didn't work out great last year storytelling wise to have all of the love triangle bullshit with those three particularly. It was uninteresting.
Yeah, I'd agree.
It was the least functional thing of any episode it appeared in. It never really worked. So I am relieved at the way this season has started, because it gives me hope that they've put it to bed. And I think they did it in a really entertaining way that made me like all of the characters more. like what a great... What a brilliant thing that when you can figure out a way to sort of put a button on a story that I was not necessarily enjoying in a way that's left me liking the characters more than I previously had. It makes me it endears me to Korra and Asami that they can put those things aside, and it endears me to Mako that he does rightfully feel a bit sheepish about it. That's very relatable.
Yeah.
Very relatable. Liked it all. Really good stuff.
Yeah, completely agree.
Yeah.
You got any other notes or areas you wanted to talk about? I feel like I've talked a lot this week, Dan.
Well, I mean, we'd have to. You'd have to do a lot of talking to catch up, Chris. Don't worry about it. I am usually the motor mouth, so I wouldn't worry about it. If anything, we'll just like Korra, Chris. I'm working towards balance. It'll never happen. I'm sorry, everyone. I am learning though. I am learning in the last few years that it is related to my ADHD, because I've got this thing where someone once said to me someone told me once, and they were talking about if you could read people's thoughts. I was like, but if you could read my thoughts, you'd get nothing, because I literally say everything I think out loud. You'd get nothing beyond what I'm already saying, and it gets me into trouble because there is no filter. But
do you if Nadia's away and we're not doing a podcast or something, you've got a day off, if you're at home on your own when Nadia returns, is there sort of like a pent up? Does it manifest? I know this is not what this podcast is about, but I'm just intrigued. Does it manifest itself in that way?
Yes.
Really? Right.
Yep. I'm just I will not shut up. I've just got all my thoughts built up bleh. Chris, that's why you sometimes get random voice notes from me about all sorts of thoughts, just unprompted random shite. It's because it's exactly because of that.
But we've discussed this before. I don't feel you think your voice notes are long, whereas I have sent a lot longer and received a lot longer voice notes than the ones you sent. So
right, but it's not just the length of them, it's also just the randomness of them. We're not having a conversation about a subject and then suddenly you'll get a 2-3 minute voice note about that subject from me out of nowhere, unprompted, just
that's true. You did yesterday, I think, at minimum 2, if not 3 separate times, said 3 separate thoughts about the Marvels. So it was clear that you were still thinking about it, and you'd been like, right, Chris is too busy to respond, so I'm going to have a one-way conversation with him for a little while, which is fine. I loved it. I enjoyed it.
It was more thoughts occurring to me, I guess, as the day went on, and I had more of a chance to think about it. But yeah, this is my problem, Chris. When people look at this podcast, they go, "Oh, Dan talks a lot," or when I look at the podcast, because I see the timeline, I'm like, God, I talked for several minutes straight there. And then, Chris talked for a minute, and then I interrupted him because I'm a fucking arsehole. I always see the timeline and I get really annoyed at myself. But it's literally because if my ADHD kicks in and it goes, if you don't say it now, you will forget to say it. That's exactly what happens. And I get really giddy and I get really excited and I jump in because I'm an idiot. So yeah, apologies if anyone's ever found that frustrating. I guess if you're still listening to us at this point, then you don't. But I try working on it. I do try. I try to be conscious of it.
Yeah. And
since I've become more aware of that's why I do that. I do try to manage it.
Yeah, but also it's the thing. You've referenced what you have. Do you know what I mean? Like, so I think you've done that, haven't you? Yeah. You've just said that. Yeah.
Yeah. ADHD.
Yeah, you said ADHD.
Yeah. So
You did say that. Right.
So,
I suddenly got panicked that you didn't say those words, and obviously I knew those words anyway. So yeah, you've got ADHD. So it's I don't think I don't think you need to justify it. Like that's something that happens. With that, it's not a problem.
Mm. Yeah. Well, it's not a problem. It's something but it's also something that knowing is a new battle, because now before I was just like that's. I'll tell you one thing I'll say this now very quickly for anyone out there who's figuring out they might also have ADHD or be on some other variant of the neurodivergent spectrum. The first thing that is upsetting is to learn that things that you thought were your personality are actually a condition. It's a very upsetting thing to realize. Like I when we first started working out that I was on when I was ADHD, like Nadia was like, I just thought this was you, like your personality. Like I just thought you did these weird things, and they were specific to you. Turns out it's just that's the way your brain works.
But you could look at it in some ways, from Nadia's perspective, it is your personality. It is you, because it makes you, and that. Do you know what I mean? So yes, there's a reason it happens, but that doesn't mean it's not still in many senses your personality. Yeah. Because do you know what I mean? Like yeah.
Yeah, but it manifests in such weird ways, particularly when it comes to productivity. It's really strange because I didn't realize, because I didn't know a lot about ADHD for this, and now it's like I get ADHD hyperfocus, and for example, I got really interested in the idea of learning how to solve a Rubik's Cube. So within 4 days, I was solving it in under 2 minutes, and not only that, but I had bought 2 different Rubik's Cubes. The initial one, just to play with it a bit and figure it out, and then I'd spent £30-40 on a pricey speed cube. Like, I got so hyperfixated on learning how to do it and then getting into it, and the cube sits near the TV now, and I do fiddle with it and solve it while I'm watching TV sometimes. But that's basically not a part of anything anymore. It's the reason I picked up the ukulele and learned how to play the ukulele. It was just like these weird brief periods where I'm just like, for a week, that's all that matters, and then it's gone. Yeah. It's crazy. Yeah. It's really crazy.
It's funny, isn't it? I don't think anything says this episode is mainly set up like you and me talking about ADHD for 10 minutes.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, so I do have some of the notes.
And in my mind, let's talk about some of the stuff. In my mind, I'm not even like, let's get back to the episode. In my mind, I'm like, I'm really intrigued about the Marvels. Here's why, Dan. Fuck it, let's do it quickly. Because a lot of people who I really respect the opinion of have said they like it, and a lot of people have been scathing. So you and Mark Bernardin, whose opinions I really value, obviously Mark Bernardin being a writer and a critic, and you being someone in my real life, you both really loved it. Mm-hmm. Dan Merle, I don't know if you've watched his review. I've only seen his non-spoiler review, but his review was scathing. He really didn't like it, and I'm just like, oh, I'm really intrigued about this film now.
Yeah, and look, I'm not going to tell anyone it's a masterpiece. I'm not, because it's but it is one of my favourite MCU films this side of Endgame for sure. I think I might have even said that to you in text yesterday. It is really fun, easy breezy, in and out, great exploration of the characters. The team have got a bunch of chemistry, which is a miracle because all 3 actors were hired separately, right? Brie Larson was hired for the first Captain Marvel. Iman Vellani was hired for Ms. Marvel specifically, and wasn't exactly necessarily tested to see if she has chemistry with Brie Larson or the actress who plays Monica Rambeau, who was cast for WandaVision. They were all cast for different things. By different casting directors, you presume, and the fact that they've got so much chemistry together is fantastic. And the movie is just like really fun, just light, enjoyable. Just like I kind of miss those Marvel movies where they weren't so bogged down in mythology, but it's just its own little adventure. It's great. I really enjoyed it. It's not, again, don't get me wrong, no one should be turning it on expecting, like, I don't know, I'm trying to think of some of the other like classic Marvel movies, like the first Guardians or like the first Iron Man, maybe, or like I'm trying to think of some of the other like Winter Soldier or anything like that. That's been like a really top tier like Marvel one from the years gone, but like it's really good. Like I had such a good time, and it's only an hour and 45 minutes. And I know that seems like a criticism, but like having a nice tight in and out movie, I was just like, yes, please give it to me. So yeah, I enjoyed it, and nothing more timely than a review from a film that came out in November for listeners in February.
It's now available on streaming. The Marvels.
Yeah. So for listeners who don't know, we're recording this on the the 11th of November. Is that today? The Marvels came out yesterday in the UK, and I went to the first morning show that I could because I knew I wasn't going to get a chance to see it any other time this weekend.
What are your other thoughts on this episode? Because I think this has been like 15 minutes now, so we better loop round.
So yeah, and look, thoughts down below. Maybe you didn't like the Marvels. I'd be curious to hear why. I will at some point. When I get the time, seek out some negative reviews and just hear what people didn't like about it. But I feel like people are just gonna all. I feel like, Chris, the negative reviews are all just gonna be the things that I thought were fun and silly are gonna be like, is this what Marvel has been reduced to? The Marvel can be whatever it wants.
Well, Dan Merle certainly. Well, obviously, one. There's a whole sector of people that are going to like it for really stupid fucking reasons.
Oh yeah, I'm not referring to those people. Those people don't even count, in my opinion. Like the people that are just going to not like it because Brie Larson doesn't smile enough can go fuck themselves. But yeah, carry on.
Yeah, exactly. Which is very much obviously not Dan Merle. He's an actual critic.
Yeah.
You are right. He didn't like the humor, for example. So you and Mark Bernardin both highlighted the humor.
Yeah.
He didn't like the humor, so yeah, I think there's a sense of that. Some things.
He's got a silly tone, like, and I think like if this was a Guardians movie, all of that stuff you'd go, yeah, fine. Like there's stuff in here that's as absurd as anything we've seen in a Guardians movie, and I mean that. And I think I found that joyful. I found so much joy in how silly this movie was comfortable being, and like that's okay. I don't understand why that's not okay. Not every movie has to be a super serious tome on the fucking angsty superheroes. Why can't we just have some fun? People seem to enjoy it when the Guardians does that. Like, I don't know why it's a problem when any other superhero movie tries to do it. Anyway, and I'm not saying this is as good as Guardians 3. I mean, Guardians 3 was a really special experience for me this year. I had a really good time with Guardians 3, but it's not a million miles away. Genuinely, I had a really fun time. I came out smiling. I was very happy. So yeah. Anyway, back to Avatar.
Yes.
But thoughts down below in the comments if you've got thoughts on the Marvels. Why not? Screw it. We've wasted a portion of the podcast reviewing it. You might as well put your thoughts in the comments below. Same. So yeah, I thought it was really clever to have Boomy be the first one for another reason we haven't discussed, which is you get this really fun idea that he does it once and then no one believes he can do it for a portion of the episode, which leads to a lot of really good jokes. So I really enjoyed that. I made notes about the fact that Korra very correctly points out that last year's entire situation wouldn't have happened if the president of Republic City had just lifted a finger. There was a point mid-season when he could have just stopped Unalaq from successfully taking the portal, and it would have prevented all of this, including the spirit vines, because Korra wouldn't have then had the opportunity to like merge the two worlds. So it's kind of on him. It's a great point, well made, and I really enjoyed Korra like sort of outmaneuvering him there politically. Although the crowd didn't really buy it, but I thought it was a good point she was making. I really love. There's a scene when Tenzin is basically with his kids looking at the city, teary-eyed, because the idea of new airbenders is brought him to a very emotional place, and he just wishes that Aang could have lived to see it. And that was just like sweet.
Yeah, I thought that was very sweet
and heartbreaking and a wonderful scene. And obviously, as always, performed incredibly by J.K. Simmons, who is just too special. Can we wrap him in bubble wrap, please? Just like find if we invent a cure for death, can we just give it to J.K. Simmons so we can have him forever, please? I never want to live in a world where J.K. Simmons isn't entertaining me. He's so good,
Yeah,
and I'm
he's
not,
very, very
you know, I just want him, and I'm not suggesting he's like near to death or anything. I just mean like 100 years from now, I still want to have J.K. Simmons on this earth. It's a weird thing to say, but I mean it. He's an absolute treasure. He's so good. Oh, I did have one minor criticism, and it's just a dialogue thing, and I just fucking, oh my god. At one point, Korra tries to make the bending, the vines go away, and it doesn't work, and it backfires. And Bolin goes, huh, that could have gone better. And I'm like, oh really, Bolin? Did that just happen? Like, what a fucking stupid line. Like... What the fuck are you doing, man? Also, doesn't a building like collapse? A building made of stone, and Earthbender Bolin just watches on gormlessly. Like Nadia pointed this out, and I was like, "Oh yeah, Bolin could have absolutely helped there." So yeah, not only does he say a stupid, shitty quip, and then like doesn't help.
So, yeah. Someone stops the building falling.
I think Korra does.
I
think Korra does.
Oh, is it not Bolin? Right, fair enough. I thought there was a shot where it was two of them, but
maybe I missed that. Maybe I was writing my notes because I was too pleased with my that could have gone better. Oh, really, Bolin? Did that just happen? Line that maybe I was so smug about that I missed the shot. Anyway, and I really enjoyed the little there was a tiny bit of tension at the end when Korra saves the near jumper, trying to convince him that being an airbender isn't the end of the world for him. That was a really nice scene too. I really liked that scene. Added a little action beat of a sort to the end of an episode that was otherwise quite talky. So I liked that. And I also really enjoyed the idea that the Republic City's president was all like, "You're banished," and she's like, "I'm not banished. I quit." Thought that was fun. Yeah. She's like, "I'm fucking off anyway, mate. Get out of here." That's great. So yeah, that's my notes. Anything you want to add about the episode other than the stuff we've already said?
No. No, said it all, man.
Good episode, I think. Good start. Looking forward to seeing where it goes.
Great first episode of a season.
Yeah, agreed. Let's quickly hit up the trivia then, Chris. You going to do the thing?
Let's triv it up!
Yeah, we're going to give you some trivia. I can't believe we still do that after all this time. It's mad that we're still saying triv it up and giving you some trivia. Anyway, not a lot of trivia for this one because it was quite a straightforward episode, I think, so there's not a lot of room for like hints and teasers to like references to past episodes and stuff like that. But Korra's staff is almost identical in appearance to the airbender staff that Aang received from the machinist in the original series. The conclusion for the episode's original premise ended after Korra's second attempt at getting rid of the vines. Right, so the original episode was more vine focused than this one and ended with her thinking she'd gotten rid of the vines and then growing back even worse, and that being a bit of an action beat to end the episode. But the writers realised the episode needed more sort of story, so they moved the sequence of Korra dealing with the vines to the second act and added the storyline with Dor. Dor is probably, I assume that's the airbender guy, to add a bit of more of a personal episode resolution. Like a more sort of That is who that is. He's called Dor. D-A-W. So that, adding that was what they did to sort of give the episode a bit more of a sort of a human note to end on, rather than just the tree stuff, which I agree. I like.
I agree.
The gag where a driver passes by Korra and Asami's idling Sotomobile was added in the storyboard phase by Hyun Jo Song as a basic drawing. Studio Mer further developed the storyboard by adding 3D perspective distortion effects to the driver and his vehicle in the final animation. So there you go. That was added post the script. That's it. There's not much triv. Not much triv, Chris. Should we do some feedback from last series?
Oh, yes. I forgot about this segment. Let's do it.
Feedback from last series. Feedback from last series.
Feedback.
You left comments.
What
you left
did
comments,
you say?
and now we're going to look at them.
We couldn't reply at the time because that's not how time works.
There's one I just got to that I wanted to cover, but I've realised I want to actually go back and look to check. So I'm going to come back to this one. We'll save this one for next week. A little tease for next week's one. So one thing, Chris, actually, that we got a fair bit of, and I would to keep it simple and quick this week. Actually, why not? Let's keep it short. We said last year, leave a comment of any kind, even to go as far as we suggested, just tell us what you had for breakfast. I don't know if you recall us doing that, and we said feedback. We'll stick it in the feedback. Someone, Alchemic Wolf 1, has told us they had chorizo and egg tacos for breakfast.
Oh,
Thoughts, Chris?
What a fucking breakfast. Oh, what a fucking breakfast. Right. So, I really like chorizo.
Yep.
Chorizo.
I never know how to pronounce that.
And that sounds like... go.
No, I was just going to say, because I'm from Manchester, and a lot of people call it chorizo in Manchester, which is definitely wrong. I know that. But it just meant that I've never been able to get the proper pronunciation down. And when we have pasta bake at home, we like to put chorizo, whatever, into it. And I always do that. I do what I just did there, which is say it both ways, because I don't know.
And let me ask you this, Dan, because this is a big reason why I like this. Because what I'm picturing in my mind, when you have your pasta bake and you put chorizo in it, what type of chorizo are you talking about there, Dan?
So it starts as like a sausage, and we cut it into chunks.
Yep. This is what I'm saying, right?
We dice it.
Is there anything? Is there? Yeah, okay. There's a lot of things more disappointing, but is up there on the disappointment scale? Is surely if
Nadia
you're in a
just
restaurant,
texted me and said both are wrong.
If you, what ways of saying it?
Yeah, Z is a soft. Well, okay, sure, a soft sound.
Well, you tell Nadia we can't all be as perfect as her.
Yeah,
is ordering chorizo at a restaurant, and it comes, and it's the fucking thin ham-like slices. Yeah, the salami-shaped and sized slices.
There's a place for that in this world, Chris. Like, that's good on a sandwich. Like, if I want that, if I want it on a sandwich, there's a place in the world for that. But if I'm baking it into something, or I'm using it as an ingredient, something, yeah, absolutely, chunks. Give me the chunks.
And what I love about this breakfast is it sounds like that's the chunks. Like, that's the chunks, isn't it? That's not the slices. That's the chunks.
Well, I'll Wolf will have to get back to us to confirm. But yeah, it's just chorizo and egg taco for breakfast. It's a good choice. That's a solid choice.
It's a great choice. And also, if it's like egg, because here's the other thing right about egg. Certainly for me as well. I know you're not particularly big on egg, if memory serves.
No, I'm not an egg guy.
If I'm like you want your eggs fresh and warm, but they can be a faff. Do you know what I mean? That's the real dichotomy of that. If I go into Costa, right, and I order a mozzarella and tomato panini, it's probably satisfying my mozzarella, desires, even though it's probably not the best quality mozzarella, because hot gooey mozzarella, boom, right there. Cheese and ham toasty, boom, right there. The egg stuff in that, you always feel a bit like eggs anywhere out where it's easier. Do you know what I mean? Like, you want, yeah. I don't know what I'm talking about at this point, but what I'm saying is it's a great breakfast choice.
Yeah, it is. So Nadia's texted something. It says the Z is a soft sound. So if I'm reading that correctly, it's chorizo. Maybe that's right. That sounds wrong. That sounds terribly wrong.
Maybe, yeah.
Chorizo. All right. Well, I'm sure she'll text me and correct me on that in a minute as well. But I thought, considering how distracted we got this episode, because there isn't as much to talk about Korra-wise, I thought this is a perfect time to do a feedback from last series that was just someone's breakfast. We'll sprinkle those in throughout the season, but encourage people once again. Commenting on the episode supports the show because it tells the algorithm you've interacted with us. So if you don't have thoughts on what we've said this week in terms of Korra or the Marvels, which we also managed to slip a review in for, tell us what you had for breakfast.
Yeah.
And then maybe a season from now we'll switch it to tell us what you had for tea or something. But like we'll keep with breakfasts because we only got a couple. Send us more.
Yeah, and as you can tell, in many ways we'd rather talk about that than Korra.
Yeah, I will say your excitement for that feedback was you had more enthusiasm talking about chorizo than you did anything from Korra this week, which I think is a condemnation of Korra, really.
Yeah, it's hard to deny that.
But yeah, thanks everyone for getting in touch. The other ways you can do it, of course, mail@nothingbutstatic.co.uk gets to us. But it is better to put it on the YouTube comments because then we get algorithm from it. You can also get in touch with us through the Discord. How do I get access to the Discord? But you ask, well, the Discord is accessible through our Patreon. So for as little as $1 a month, if you can spare it, and only if you can spare it, supports us by helping us pay the server bills, which aren't massive, and we don't need a huge amount of support to cover. We've gone back to being in the minus on that, so we're slightly out of pocket now, but that's fine. It ebbs and flows with if I'm being honest, it ebbs and flows with Korra and Rewind reviews. Is what I've noticed. So right now, we are not breaking even. I am having to spend, but that's fine. In a month or so's time, when Korra starts up again, I'm sure we'll be back. So yeah, supporting us that way just helps us keep those bills. So we do this sort of at no loss. And what it gives you access to is this podcast 1 week ahead of time. So if you want to hear us discuss next week's episode, which I believe is called Rebirth, right now, and you're listening to it on Spotify or iTunes, you can head over to the Patreon and do it that way. It also, as I mentioned, gives you the ability to get access to our Discord, and it also gives you access to our special bonus podcast that is exclusive to our Patreon, which is Nothing But Lyrics, which is where we take a song, we look at the lyrics, try to make sense of them, or make fun of them. We're actually recording one straight after this, where we do the Alien Ant Farm song Tia Lupe, and you'll be able to hear that right now if you wish, by going over to patreon.com/nothingbutstatic and supporting us that way. The YouTube channel, if I didn't read it out, was youtube.com/nothingbutstatic.uk.
I love the way that at the start of that you made the point that the Patreon sort of ebbs and flows depending on the content that people are interested in, and then revealed that we were about to record a Patreon exclusive about an Alien Ant Farm album track. It's going to pull the people in, Dan.
Well,
look,
people, let me tell you, I can't wait to have done, a year or two's worth of Nothing But Lyrics and just look back at the playlist that's created. Because one of our listeners, Punkfish, has created a Nothing But Lyrics playlist with all the songs in it. And let me tell you, it is the most schizophrenic. It's got a Spice Girls song in there. Now it's got an Alien Ant Farm song in there. It's got a fucking 1975 song or whatever that band is called. It's got what else have we got? We got James Blunt's in there, I think. Radiohead are in there.
He is, yeah.
Limp Bizkit are in there. Like it's a very eclectic list of songs. I can tell you. And what I like about Nothing But Lyrics, to sell it to people if they're interested, is that every single episode is different, because we either are just scratching our heads. We did I Want It That Way by the Backstreet Boys. And just that episode was just purely about, can we figure out what the fuck they're talking about? Yeah. But then we did the Spice Girls one, and we knew exactly what they were talking about, and it was fun to discover that, because it was a message in the song young us had not picked up on, So every episode of it is different. The 19 what the band called, the 1975. Is that what they're called?
Yeah, 1975.
I never know what the last number is. I always know it's the 1970 something, but I never know what the final number is. But that was more about me discovering or confirming my fears that Matt Healy's a real piece of shit. No, I'm kidding. He might be, but I don't know that. But no, it was confirming my fears that I don't think I'd be much into that band, based on what
have you gone back and listened to the actual song?
I haven't. I haven't. Yeah, I should do. I am intrigued to hear it, because we went through and analysed the lyrics. I would actually like to hear how it sounds in a song now, because I am curious as to how Christmassy the song sounds, because its lyrics were Christmas-ish. They were not Christmas they weren't so directly Christmas that the song needs to sound Christmassy, but I'm curious as to how Christmassy the song sounds. So I probably will check that out at some point, maybe even just today, just so I can have it done. But I am curious about that. So yeah, check it out. It's fun. I really enjoyed it. I really enjoy recording it, and if you're listening to this and you enjoy this, and particularly this episode where we've tangented a lot, then you should probably you should probably give that a go, because it's fun. It's a fun time. So that's everything. I think I covered all of the usual stuff. Of course, you can keep supporting us by just telling a friend as well, or continuing to listen. Those are other ways you can support us that are less active. If you don't feel the need to leave a comment or support us on Patreon, you are absolutely. We love you for just listening. So you can just keep doing that. That also supports what we do.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. That's everything for this week. Thank you very much for listening. I've been Dan Doolan.
I've been Chris Billingham.
And we'll see you in a week's time when we sit down to review Rebirth.